She was invisible to the world. 22-year-old Maya Ellis, a diner waitress raised in foster care, barely getting by. One night, she fell asleep on the subway and woke up in a world she didn't belong to, until her act of kindness changed everything. At just 22 years old, Maya Ellis already carried the weight of a lifetime on her slim shoulders. Her mocha-brown skin glowed faintly in the dim lighting of Gracie's diner as she cleaned up after her shift. Her soft curly black hair tied into a low bun framed her tired face. Her hazel eyes, once bright with dreams, now reflected a quiet exhaustion. Dressed in her olive green waitress uniform, which sagged from years of overuse, and her worn-out white sneakers, Maya moved through the diner like a ghost in a place that never saw her. Raised in foster care, Maya had never known stability. She had moved from home to home, always trying to be useful, never asking for too much. She was intelligent, resilient, and kind, but she never felt like she belonged anywhere. After her shift, she walked down into the city's sprawling subway network, clutching her old canvas bag. Inside were her essentials, secondhand books, snacks she'd saved from work, and a tattered notebook filled with ideas and quotes. She boarded the nearly empty train, choosing the quietest car. She told herself she'd stay awake just until the next stop. But as the train rocked gently, her eyes closed. The subway screeched to a stop, and Maya startled awake. The train doors slid open to reveal a gleaming, well-lit platform unlike anything she'd ever seen. She stepped out groggily, realizing too late that she had missed her stop. Marble walls, gold trim, and glowing signage marked a part of the city she had never visited. As Maya ascended the steps to street level, she clutched her canvas bag tightly. Above ground, the streets were pristine. Expensive cars idled silently at stoplights. Luxury boutiques and elegant brownstone homes stretched across tree-lined avenues. Everyone passing by wore polished shoes and designer coats. Maya, in her scuffed uniform and tired sneakers, felt like a stain on a perfect painting. She glanced around, unsure whether to head left or right. Everything felt foreign. She took a few hesitant steps toward the subway entrance again, planning to wait for the next train. Then a sharp sound interrupted her thoughts, a loud thud. She turned her head quickly and saw an elderly man collapse to the ground across the street. Nobody moved. People looked, then hurried past. Maya didn't think. She sprinted toward him. The man lay face down on the sidewalk, motionless. Maya dropped to her knees beside him. He had silver hair and pale skin and was dressed in an expensive dark blue overcoat. Blood trickled from a wound on his forehead. "Sir?" she called, gently shaking his shoulder. No response. Maya's training from years of emergency drills in group homes kicked in. She tore off her apron and pressed it to his bleeding head, her fingers trembling but determined. "Hold on, please," she whispered. She dialed 911 with her free hand. Her voice shook but remained clear. An older man collapsed. "He's bleeding from the head. I don't know this street, but I see a sign, Blakemont Avenue." People still passed by. Some slowed, then kept going. Not one offered help. Maya stayed with him, speaking gently, applying pressure, doing everything she could. Her hazel eyes scanned his face. He looked well-kept but worn down, like someone who had lived long and seen much. She willed him to keep breathing. As the sirens approached in the distance, his eyes fluttered open for just a second. He saw her. Then everything went black again. The hospital room smelled faintly of antiseptic and lavender. Maya sat nervously in the visitor's chair, her canvas bag at her feet. Her olive uniform was still stained from the man's blood. She hadn't even changed. A nurse had called her back after her information had been left at the scene. The man, now cleaned up and bandaged, opened his eyes again. His silver hair had been brushed back. He blinked once, then focused on her. "You stayed," he said in a gravelly voice. Maya nodded. "Yes, sir, I couldn't just leave you there." He smiled faintly. "Most people did." He introduced himself as Alistair Rowan, 78 years old, a retired businessman with pale skin, sharp blue eyes, and an air of elegance worn gently. He was dressed now in a navy sweater and brown pajama pants. The hospital staff treated him with unusual respect. "I'd like to thank you properly," he said. "Would you visit me again?" Maya hesitated. Her instinct said no, but something in his eyes, a loneliness that mirrored her own, made her say yes. A week later, Maya Ellis stood in awe outside a wrought iron gate. She wore a simple brown coat over her faded olive green waitress uniform. She hadn't owned much else. Her sneakers were freshly wiped but still bore stains from years of wear. Clutching her canvas bag, she stepped forward when the gate opened. Alistair Rowan, now recovering at home, greeted her at the door. "Welcome, Maya," he said, as if she were royalty. Inside, polished wood floors gleamed and chandeliers caught the sunlight like prisms. Maya felt out of place, her breath shallow. She was led into a parlor filled with antique furniture and warm-colored paintings. Alistair poured her tea with trembling hands, eager to talk. "You didn't walk away," he said. "That means something." Inside the mansion, not everyone welcomed Maya. During her second visit, a new figure entered the parlor. Everett Rowan, 29, tall and lean with light skin, short dark blonde hair, sharp gray eyes and a stern expression. Dressed in a tailored charcoal suit with a wine-colored tie, he radiated suspicion. Maya stood to greet him politely, extending her hand, which he ignored. His gray eyes scanned her from head to toe, her old canvas bag, the fraying hem of her uniform, the way she shifted uncomfortably on the edge of a silk-upholstered seat. Alistair's smile faded slightly. Maya saved my life, Everett. Everett didn't blink. And now she's in your house. Maya's hazel eyes didn't flinch. I didn't ask for anything. No, Everett said coldly. But people like you always find a way to take something. Alistair's voice rose. That's enough. Maya stood quietly, eyes calm but wounded. She wasn't new to being misjudged, but something about Everett's words struck deeper. Maybe it was because for the first time in a long time she had begun to feel hope, and now that hope had been questioned. Despite the tension, Alistair insisted Maya stay for a few days. She was given a guest room with floral wallpaper, a 4-poster bed, and a window that overlooked the rose garden. At night she journaled beside the window, her curly black hair now in a loose puff, her hazel eyes reflecting the moonlight. The mansion's housekeeper, Mrs. Ayala, was kind. Her 10-year-old daughter, Sophia, took to Maya instantly. Maya began helping Sophia with her English homework in the afternoons, sitting cross-legged in the sunroom with the little girl while the breeze rustled the curtains. Dressed now in simple jeans and an oversized gray hoodie, Maya blended into the home not by appearance, but by warmth. Her mocha-brown skin and bright smile stood out in the sea of polished servants and marble halls. Everett continued to observe her from a distance. Sometimes she caught him staring through the French doors or pausing when he passed the sunroom. He never said anything, but his expression was shifting, less rigid, more puzzled. One morning, while exploring, Maya discovered a narrow hallway behind a tapestry. At its end was a door that creaked open to reveal a hidden library. Dusty, majestic, filled with shelves that reached the ceiling and smelled of cedar and thyme. She entered reverently, dressed in a soft blue sweater and dark leggings. Her mocha-brown skin stood out against the golden-brown wood, her hazel eyes wide in awe. She ran her fingers along the spines of classics, poetry, and philosophy. Alistair found her there. He chuckled warmly. This was my wife's favorite place. She used to say stories were a second kind of memory. They sat for hours. Alistair shared tales of his youth, of mistakes he made, of the family he lost, his daughter, Everett's mother, who died when Everett was young. Maya listened, every word a key to unlocking both his world and her own silence. It was the first time anyone had spoken to her as an equal, not a case file or a burden. Everett could no longer ignore it. He saw Maya laugh with Sophia, kneel beside the gardener to learn flower names, sit with his grandfather reading Dickinson and Baldwin. He caught her one rainy evening in the kitchen, barefoot in plaid pajama pants and a gray cardigan, humming as she made tea. Her mocha-brown skin glowed in the refrigerator's light, and her hazel eyes sparkled when she saw him. I thought rich people had robot butlers for this sort of thing, she teased gently, handing him a cup. He blinked, then smiled, an actual smile. We're all out of robots. They talked for hours. About identity, about how being seen felt scarier than being invisible. Everett spoke of the pressure to uphold a family name, of always being in control, of feeling alone even in a mansion. Maya listened, her fingers wrapped around her mug. Control is a lonely blanket, she said softly. Over the following weeks, Maya and Everett grew closer. Their conversations deepened. One afternoon, they walked the estate gardens. Maya wore a flowing lavender blouse and dark jeans, her curly black hair free around her face. Everett had shed his suits for a comfortable cream sweater and jeans. They stopped near a pond, watching koi ripple the surface. Maya opened up about the foster homes, about never celebrating a birthday, about nights hiding from drunken foster parents. Her hazel eyes didn't tear up, they burned with quiet fire. Everett, in turn, spoke of his mother's death, of how Alistair buried his grief in work and charity, leaving Everett to be raised by strangers in their own house. There was no kiss, no dramatic pause, just two souls standing side by side, seeing each other clearly for the first time. Their fingers brushed, neither pulled away. The annual Rowan Foundation Gala arrived, a formal event held in the mansion's grand ballroom. It was Everett's world, full of champagne flutes, pearls, and polished lies. Alistair had insisted Maya attend. She wore a borrowed emerald dress that flowed like silk over her mocha-brown skin. Her curly black hair was swept up in an elegant bun, and her hazel eyes shimmered under the golden lights of the chandelier. Everyone stared, some in admiration, others in judgment. Everett, dressed in a sleek black tuxedo, stayed near her at first, but as guests arrived, his old classmates, business partners, and elite donors, he drifted away. Maya tried to fit in, offering polite smiles and soft answers. but she overheard a woman whisper, "Who let the help into the gala?" Later, Everett's college friend laughed and said, "So this is the mystery girl. Smart play. She's like your Cinderella experiment." Maya looked across the room to Everett, who had heard it but said nothing. Her heart cracked. She excused herself, the glittering gown unable to hide the weight of shame. In a room full of riches she had never felt poorer. Maya didn't wait for morning. That night, dressed again in her olive waitress uniform and olive coat, her mocha-brown skin pale from fatigue and disappointment, she quietly packed her canvas bag and stepped into the hallway one last time. Alistair met her in the library. He was in his robe, leaning on his cane. His silver hair was uncombed and his blue eyes shone with grief. "You don't have to go," he said. Maya gave a sad smile. "I never belonged here. I just forgot for a little while." "You changed this house," he whispered. "You changed me." She embraced him, gently kissing his forehead. "You gave me a home when I needed it most. That's something I'll never forget." With tears unshed, Maya stepped outside. The night was quiet. Her hazel eyes looked toward the city lights as she walked away, not defeated but steady. Back in her modest apartment, Maya returned to her routine, but she wasn't the same girl who had fallen asleep on a subway weeks ago. She resumed her shifts at the diner but started volunteering part-time at the local library. Within months, the director noticed her skill with children. Her calm patience, warm mocha-brown skin, and glowing hazel eyes lit up the reading room. Parents began to request her personally. One afternoon, Sophia and Mrs. Ayala visited her. Sophia threw her arms around Maya, telling her she'd won her school's poetry contest thanks to Maya's tutoring. Encouraged, Maya applied for a local scholarship to attend teaching certification classes. Her essay, titled "Building Home Through Stories," won her a full ride. She studied at night, mentored kids by day, and began to lead literacy programs. Dressed in simple jeans, a floral top, and sneakers, Maya stood confidently before a classroom one day, realizing she had found her purpose. Back at the mansion, the halls felt empty. Alistair grew quieter. Everett, now 30, found himself wandering into the hidden library more often. One afternoon he found Maya's journal. She had left it behind on the shelf, perhaps unintentionally. Inside the front cover was a quote, "Kindness is a language the blind can see and the deaf can hear." He sat there for hours, rereading her words, observations, memories, fears, and dreams. A section detailed the night of the gala, the shame, the loneliness, and her longing to be more than a guest in someone else's world. That night, Everett stood at the edge of the estate gardens and asked himself the question he had been avoiding. What was he so afraid of? He remembered her words. "Control is a lonely blanket." The next day he left the mansion. Maya stood outside the library, her workplace now, helping a little boy zip his coat. The autumn wind tugged at her curls, which she wore in a puff above her warm smile. She wore a simple beige sweater, brown slacks, and a blue scarf around her neck. As she turned to walk back inside, she heard her name. "Maya?" She froze. Across the sidewalk stood Everett Rowan. In his hand was her journal. She walked toward him slowly. "What are you doing here?" "I read your words," he said, voice cracking, "and I realized I spent my life protecting a version of myself I didn't even like. But you made me want to be better." She crossed her arms gently. "That night you didn't stand up for me. I know, and I will regret it for the rest of my life, unless you let me prove I can do better." For a long moment she said nothing. Then she whispered, "Walk with me." After their reunion, Maya and Everett sat in a quiet neighborhood cafe. The cafe hummed quietly around them as they talked. Everett spoke of leaving his old life behind, how he'd stepped down from his corporate position and begun teaching business ethics at a community college. He confessed he still wrestled with shame. Maya listened, eyes steady. "You don't have to be perfect to start over. You just have to start." She spoke about her work at the library, how the children inspired her, how Alistair's influence had never left her. They shared laughter over Sophia's poetry and stories of the garden at the mansion. When Everett placed her journal on the table and said, "Let's write the next chapter together," Maya simply reached for his hand. Months passed and Maya and Everett became more than just partners in love. They became partners in purpose. They took long walks through Maya's old neighborhood, this time dreaming together. Inspired by Maya's work and Everett's new vision, they developed a plan to open a literacy center and community library. It would be a place of refuge and opportunity. They named it the Rowan Ellis Center for Hope. Maya, still deeply rooted in her identity, wore practical clothes, earth-tone dresses, woven belts, and sturdy sandals. Her mocha-brown skin glowed as she met with city officials, organized local volunteers, and mentored teens. Her hazel eyes lit up with every child who walked through the door. Everett was always beside her, learning to do things the hard way, painting walls, fixing leaky sinks, and teaching financial literacy workshops to local parents. Alistair Rowan, now 80, stood at the groundbreaking ceremony, wrapped in a navy overcoat and scarf. His silver hair blew in the wind as he smiled at them both, no longer a lonely old man but a proud grandfather. They stood together under the new sign, Maya and Everett's hands clasped, hearts steady. The center thrived. Children filled the reading rooms, parents attended community nights, and elders found purpose as volunteer mentors. Maya, always leading with grace, taught creative writing classes. Everett expanded the outreach program, bringing in speakers, resources, and funding. One morning, in the quiet of the rooftop garden, Everett brought Maya a journal, a new one with her name embossed in gold. She wore a soft green maxi dress, her mocha-brown skin radiant in the morning sun. Her curly hair was tied back with a silk ribbon, and her hazel eyes sparkled as she took the journal in her hands. "I never knew what love felt like before you," Everett said, his voice shaking slightly. "But now I do. I don't want another day to pass without you knowing how deeply I choose you." He dropped to one knee and opened a small velvet box. The ring was modest, elegant, just like her. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Tears welled in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. They embraced, surrounded by the blooming garden they had both helped to grow. The wedding was held beneath the trees in the courtyard of the Literacy Center. The decor was simple, white flowers, flowing linens, and books stacked as centerpieces. Guests came from every chapter of their journey. Children from Maya's programs, librarians, Everett's students, Sophia and her mother, and of course Alistair, who walked Maya down the aisle. Maya wore a white lace gown that flowed effortlessly as she walked, her mocha-brown skin radiant, curly hair woven with jasmine blossoms. Her hazel eyes shimmered as they met Everett's. Everett, in a soft gray suit with a simple white boutonniere, had never looked more at peace. His gray eyes were locked on her, filled with reverence. As they exchanged vows, there were no grand promises, only the truth. "I choose you," again and again, in every world, in every life. They kissed beneath an arch of wildflowers as the sun broke through the clouds. Years later, the Rowan Ellis Center remained a beacon. Inside its garden, Maya, now 27, still radiant with mocha-brown skin, her curly hair pulled into a puff, wearing a long flowing navy dress, watched as children chased butterflies, teens studied for exams, and elders sipped tea under the pergola. Everett, 34, with light skin, a bit of stubble, and flecks of gray in his hair, came beside her with a smile. "We started something, didn't we?" She nodded, her hazel eyes filled with quiet pride. "And we're just getting started." Inside the center, a plaque hung near the main doors beneath a portrait of Alistair Rowan. It read, "Kindness doesn't ask where you came from. It simply opens the door." Sophia, now 16, read a poem at a youth event that day. "We are not the sum of where we started. We are the spark of who we become." Maya closed her eyes for a moment. Then she turned to the camera and said, "If you've ever felt forgotten, alone, or broken, remember, even the wrong turn can lead to the right heart." Subscribe for more stories of second chances and never stop believing in kindness.